Welcome to the Life You Love podcast.
We're your hosts, Grace Lemire
and Erin Convertini.
This podcast is for the dreamers and the doers.
For the women who want to create a life they genuinely love waking up to.
We believe that life's short, so let's build one we love. As two six-figure entrepreneurs who share our lives online, we're always getting questions from you guys about business, everything from starting your career to growing a platform to the behind-the-scenes mechanics of running a business. We asked in our Instagram stories for all of your questions on life and had so many business questions, we decided to put them in their own episode so we can go deeper and give you guys all the advice.
It's so funny when we do Instagram story question polls and we just leave it so generic and we're like, let us know what you want to know. And we never know what kind of responses we're going to get. And last week's was, it was kind of interesting. We got a lot of lifestyle ones, a lot about like moving away in your 20s, which is the episode that we're going to film right after that. And just a lot of like different things about making friends and fun things like that. But then on the flip side, we got so many questions about money, career, and business, which makes sense because we make a lot of content about that as well. So we figured we would just like separate all of them and make them kind of themed. So I'm excited about some of the questions on our list here, and I can read the first one. So this says, what do you do when you don't know what you want out of life? I feel like I have no desires of substance. I know I'm on this earth to serve people and seek the kingdom of God, but I'm having trouble finding my footing.
Okay, so my thought here, which I guess I have like several thoughts here. So obviously, this is someone who is like driven by their faith. And so I think the way I would respond to this is a little bit different. But first off, when you say you have no desires of substance, I would ask yourself, like, to whom? Like, do you feel like your desires are of no substance? Because the way that I view it is if that desire, like if God put that desire on your heart, there's a reason. And even if people who are listening, even if you are not religious, like I think that if there is a desire on your heart, it's there for a reason. I think we're all unique people and we're going to have unique desires, and our bar for like what is enough or what is of substance, I think we need to let that go sometimes, right? Like someone else is not like morally superior or whatever because they're doing something that is of more substance. And I think we should ask ourselves, like, what does substance even mean to us? Like, why are your desires any lesser than someone else's? But the thing I will say about this, I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine. His name is Donovan, and some of y'all have probably seen his content online. He does like personal branding stuff. And we were talking about how he actually made a video about it, I think the day that we're filming this, so you can go look on his account. But we were talking about this last week, actually. And he was basically saying something along the lines of like, the magic doesn't have to be in what you do, but it can be in how you do it. So for example, this person, you're saying, you know that you're on this earth to serve people. So how can you find ways to serve people in what you're already doing? Those things that you feel like are desires of no substance, how can you find ways to do that? If you know that serving people fills your cup, maybe it's not about the what you're doing. Maybe it's not about whether you're a nurse or a receptionist or you work at a coffee shop or you're a business development manager, whatever. Maybe it's not about what the exact role is, but it's in how you do it. And so maybe it's like, how are you serving people in those roles? Because that's what fills your cup. And I think that was a good reframe, like in my conversation with Donovan, thinking about, because we were talking about how like what we share on social media isn't always necessarily helpful to us per se, because we already know the things, right? So like when he's talking about personal branding, he already knows those things about personal branding. He's teaching other people. So saying the same thing about personal branding over and over and over can get exhausting, but it's the way he does it. He changes the how he's doing it. So he'll has a series where he brings up like a whiteboard and like breaks down the topic on a whiteboard. He has like a paper shredder where he puts people's like limiting beliefs, writes them on a piece of paper and then puts it in the paper shredder. It's the same type of stuff. It's just like he's changing the how he does it. And I think whether you're an entrepreneur or not, I think that applies. And I also think too, on top of all of that, there has to be like, sometimes your job's not going to be the thing that fulfills every ounce of you. And I think it's very okay to have a job that you like, and then outside of your job that you like, you have a life that you love. And I didn't even mean that in a way to like tie back to the podcast title,
but I loved it.
But I did. So, okay. Yeah.
I have so many thoughts here too, because the topic of fulfillment and satisfaction does often get lumped with your career. But thinking back to like when I was in college and I was working internships, and then I graduated from college and I was working my first corporate job and things like that, like when I think back to that time, I did feel very fulfilled, but it wasn't necessarily because of my job title. And I think that's a good skill to learn, is learning how to separate your identity as a human being from your career and your job title. I was having a conversation with a business mentor of mine a couple of weeks ago, and I got a really good piece of advice. I was just having one of those days where I kind of felt like purposeless. Is that a word? Like, I was just feeling a lack of purpose. That's what I'm meaning. But I was just feeling like, what the heck am I doing? Like, am I helping anybody? Am I serving people in what I'm doing day to day? Just kind of feeling like a little bit lost. And he gave me a really good piece of advice, and just that you don't necessarily have to 100% of the time feel fulfilled by like the greater, like, let's call it your job title and your corporate job, but learn how to find fulfillment and satisfaction in the individual tasks that you're doing within your day to day. So for example, when I was working my corporate job, I presented a lot and my title was internal auditor. Okay. Let's say I didn't feel super fulfilled by being an internal auditor at a Fortune 50 company, but I really loved the aspect of like developing a presentation, forming a cohesive story, preparing for the presentation, and then like crushing it and getting really good feedback from my manager. Sometimes you do have to like find those small pieces in your day and get satisfaction from that, because the truth is that you're not going to 100% of the time love what you're doing, love your career, love your job title. That's just kind of like not how it works. So I did really like that. And it kind of reframed like finding and appreciating small little parts of your day. The second part of this, when you were telling the story of your conversation with your friend, it reminded me of a conversation I was having with one of my content creator friends. So coming at this from kind of the more like businessy angle or content creator angle, we were having this exact same conversation about like, what do you do when you're not really feeling super fulfilled or feeling like you have a strong purpose or you're helping people enough? And she said that she heard this from a business mentor of hers, in that it was something along the lines of like, how lucky are we to be in a society where we can prioritize like pleasure and entertainment and like that stuff as career paths, not just like in this world we live today. We don't just need doctors and lawyers and people in those career paths. We also have a lot of people that are in like the entertainment industry, and they're there to bring joy to people's lives, and like that's their purpose. And like recognize that that's a strong, like if that's what you love and if that's what is bringing you fulfillment, that can be enough as well.
I also, too, going back to the question of like, what do you do when you don't know what you want out of life? I feel like, because we took this as like a career thing of like, I feel like I have no desires of substance and having trouble finding my footing. It's like, I feel like the idea of, well, I guess I'll speak for myself. When I felt like I didn't know what I wanted out of life, I think it was because I didn't feel like what I actually wanted was enough. And it seems like that's where this person's coming from too, where it's like, I feel like I have no desires of substance. And it's like, what does that, again, like, what does that mean? I think that when you picture, like, go through like each of the domains of your life and be like, okay, spiritually, like, what does that look like? Like, when I think of my dream, like, when I feel so at peace in whatever that spiritual relationship is, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in a different God, whether you don't believe in God at all, whatever it may be, like, what does that look like to you? What is like your dream, like physical, like how active are you? What things do you participate in when it comes to your health? Like, what does that look like in that dream scenario? Your finances, your career, like your relationships, go like through all the domains of your life and be like, what would that look like if I just felt at peace and really joyful in each of these? And I think that will reveal a lot of what you want out of life. And sometimes it has nothing to do with your career. And other times it's just like, maybe it is a career thing. But I think that sometimes we feel like we don't know what we want out of life because we feel like what we want is actually not enough. And I also will say, I have felt this way when I'm in a period where, so I'm the type of person who I always want more, 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 more. And I'm always like moving the goalpost for myself. So I hit a goal and then I say, well, let me go get something else. And I don't really ever celebrate where I'm at. And I'm actually learning how to be, it's a crazy concept, guys. I'm learning how to be like in a space where my nervous system is just like at peace because I'm not constantly like shooting for more. How do I be okay with where I am and just like enjoy that? And I think too, sometimes we think, well, what do I want out of life? And when we take time to reflect, it's like, I actually have a lot of what I want out of life. And maybe I'm just in a season where I'm not desiring more, more, more. And I just need to sit with the enough. And then when I feel like, okay, I actually do want more, then it becomes clearer, what I actually desire beyond where I currently am.
Yeah, definitely. The whole like what I want out of life, it's such a hard question to answer. And I will say, like, you're probably never going to have the answer for it if you're the person that wrote this question. Like, it's not going to be one day you wake up and say, okay, now I know what I want out of life and I'm content for the rest of my life. Like you said, like you're going to go through periods where you are striving for new things. Like we as humans, we're curious, we like learning new skills, we like learning new things. So you're going to be in periods where you do want more or just like want something different, you want to change, and then also learning how to be in periods where you're just content and you're just like at ease. I will say the last thing on this before we move on is a lot of people focus too much on what do I want out of my life in terms of my career, and should just let it like be a hobby until it could potentially be a career in the future. So for example, when I was in college, I got really into like money and investing, and I did it as a hobby. Like I was reading books on money and investing as a hobby. I was listening to podcasts as a hobby. I was really interested in it for my own life. It had nothing to do with my career at the time. I was studying finance, but it's not like I was trying to become a financial advisor. I was working in like banking at the time. So like learning about money and investing had nothing to do with my career path. It was just something that I was genuinely interested in. I heard this phrase on social media a couple of weeks ago and it really stuck with me. It was the phrase intellectual curiosity. And it's just like you're learning something that is making you smarter, but it's just because of your own curiosity. It's not because you're trying to like make it into a career or monetize it. I had that hobby for a couple of years before it even crossed my mind to do anything with it. And after 3 or 4 years of being really interested in it, that's when I started posting on social media about it because I realized I could help other people. And then that turned into being able to monetize it. And now it's my full-time career. So I would say just like focus on things that you're genuinely interested in, not with your brain taking you to, okay, well, I'm not going to spend time on this if I can't monetize it. Just be curious and be interested in things. And later on down the road, it could end up being your career.
Mm-hmm. Percent. Okay, we should move to question 2 because we spent 10 minutes on question 1. But okay, this question says, I just submitted my resignation to my corporate job with no plan or real direction as to what is next. I'm 22, currently working on completing a graduate degree, and have decided to turn my focus to freelance/self-employment. I'm excited for a fresh start, but I'm struggling with imposter syndrome. How did you find the confidence to put yourself and your work out there?
Okay, I feel like there's so much to this question. And I know
Mm-hmm.
it kind of asks us about like freelancing and self employment and like putting yourself out there. But I want to touch on like the first half of the question first, because this person said currently working on a graduate degree. And I'm not saying that a graduate degree is bad by any means. And this person actually said they're working on completing it. So, like, complete your degree if you're already well into it. But I do think a lot of people get like this where they don't really know what they want to do. Like, maybe you went for an undergraduate degree that was a little bit vague and you're not really sure what to do upon graduating. So you think that the logical next step is to get a graduate degree because that's going to solve all of your problems. And I would definitely say think through that decision a little bit because graduate degrees are so expensive. And if you're doing it because you don't know what you want to do, that's a lot different than going to a graduate degree because you do know what you want to do, because sometimes you know what you want, but you have to get the graduate degree in order to get there. I have one really good example of this. So my friend here in Nashville, she studied like business or something. And she graduated from college, wasn't sure what she wanted to do. So she took, it was like a 4-week online coding boot camp. I don't think it was more than $1,000, but she was like, this is just something that I'm interested in. I want to take this coding. It's like low stakes because it's less than $1,000. And now she has like over a 6-figure job coding after not studying coding in college, never getting a graduate degree. So there are, all of that is to say, there are lower stakes ways to kind of figure out what you want to do next in your career.
I think, like you said, this question has a lot of layers to it. Okay, I'm like, where do we start? So the whole like struggling with imposter syndrome thing, one thing I'll say, so if you're already in the middle of a graduate degree, Yeah, I'd probably just complete the degree. I am curious, and obviously we don't have the context here. I am curious if that graduate degree is supporting what you want to do in freelancing and self employment, or if it is not. Also, I have no idea if you're going to have student loan debt. Like, I don't know what that looks like. And you, frankly, you didn't ask me. So, that you're asking for my opinion on confidence to put yourself out there. So that's what we're going to focus on. But I am curious, like, what that situation looks like to understand, like, the full scope of the scenario here. But I think, and this is probably not going to be a popular, it's not even my opinion, although I do agree. So it technically is my opinion. But Alex Hormozy, I think, is who says this. And he basically says that, like, if you're good enough at something, you're not going to have imposter syndrome. And I slightly disagree. And the way that I think about it is imposter syndrome can come from two things. One, you're genuinely not skilled enough yet at what you want to do or what you want to offer, which is solvable, or what you want to like, or you struggle so much with self-doubt, like so deeply, that you don't feel like what you offer is enough, which is also solvable. So if you're struggling with imposter syndrome and you're listening to this, don't feel like it's like, a death sentence. Like, regardless of why you have it, it is solvable. But I do think that sometimes, and I will say I have definitely been in this position, dealing with imposter syndrome, the solution was to take more time to actually learn what I wanted to do. I felt a lot of imposter syndrome when I started freelancing because I was charging people any amount of money. It wasn't even a high amount of money. It was like 20 bucks an hour for things that I didn't really know how to do at all. I was teaching myself as I went, and I felt a level of imposter syndrome, and I just had to keep pushing through it because I was like, I was learning on the job pretty much, and learning, I'd clock in, do something, clock out, go figure out how to do the next task on my own time, then go clock back in, do it for the client so that I'm not billing them for me just like teaching myself something. But the reality was I had imposter syndrome because I wasn't good enough at it yet. And I was like, why would anyone pay me for this? And again, it wasn't a large amount of money, but I think that that is very true when it comes to imposter syndrome. And how you respond to it is different, right? If it's a situation of, okay, I am struggling with the confidence, like speaking about my work confidently, it could be because you need to improve those skills. And yeah, like that could be part of it. Or it could be that you're struggling with the self-doubt around it and you have to figure out how to solve for that. And that's a whole, they're just different, right? And I don't think it's a bad idea to pivot into freelancing. Going back to the beginning of this question with, like, you're working on a graduate degree, but you're deciding to turn your focus to freelancing. I do feel like freelancing is something that takes time to build, and I think it needs to be done strategically.
Yeah. So the key here is that you're going to feel imposter syndrome and you have to take action anyway. And this applies to whatever you decide that you want to do because you're getting a graduate degree. So you're setting yourself up to hopefully either get a full-time job or get a freelance job. And like either way, you're getting a job. A freelance gig is going to be a contract position. It's probably not going to be 40 hours a week. It's probably going to be more on like a monthly retainer basis. We have a whole episode about freelancing that we just did last month if you're like kind of confused about the term or like the structure of work there. But it's really not that different from getting a full-time job. So for example, when I was in college, I was a business major. So I really wanted to get a lot of different internships to figure out what I wanted to do when I graduated because I was so scared of graduating from college with student loan debt and not having a job in my career field. So I was like, let me get a ton of internships. I had so much imposter syndrome applying for my first internship in my career field that I didn't even apply for a job like directly in my industry. So I was a finance and economics major and I was applying for an internship at PNC, which is like the big bank in Pittsburgh. And they have this huge internship program where you can get a bunch of different like roles within the company. And I was studying finance and economics, obviously. So there were a lot of roles that were directly related to that, like investment banking and those types of things. I had so much imposter syndrome that I didn't think I was qualified to do those roles that I didn't even apply for them. And I ended up getting an internship in the risk management department, which is what I ended up getting a job in post grad because that's what all of my internship experience was in. But I kind of set myself up to not be able to work in a lot of those finance roles because I had imposter syndrome around applying for those internships. And like, that's kind of a big regret of mine. I mean, obviously like my life turned out fine and it worked out, but that's a big regret of mine is like not even putting myself out there because at the end of the day, you're applying for an internship. Like nobody knows how to be an investment banker for an internship. So all of that is to say, like all of that rambling is to say, like you're going to have imposter syndrome doing literally everything. Like when I started my TikTok account, I had so much imposter syndrome talking about the topic of money when my net worth was in the negatives and I just graduated from college. Like, you just have it for everything that you do, and you like literally have to take action anyways.
And I think
Yeah.
too, like on that topic, I don't think imposter syndrome is necessarily a bad thing. I think that we've like positioned it as this negative thing, but like when you have never done something before, like you're saying, when you know a whole lot about money, but just because your net worth is negative doesn't mean that you don't know a lot about money. Or like I know some financial coaches who have, I believe they still have debt, but yet they've paid off like over $100,000 of debt. So why would they, for example, why would they ever have imposter syndrome about knowing how to pay off debt or about being financial coaches because they still have debt? They've paid off over 100K of debt. Like they're both like certified in a bunch of different financial coaching and counseling and this and that and whatever. Like, but it's, I guarantee you on day one, most people feel like they have imposter syndrome because even if you have knowledge, you just have never done what you're doing before. So, but the key is taking action anyways, taking action despite it, like you said, and also using the imposter syndrome as a motivator. Like, I don't want to feel a lack of confidence around what I'm doing all of the time. So I'm going to continue to show up because building confidence comes from doing, which we have a whole episode on that too. Like, I'm going to keep showing up for it anyways. So,
Yeah, let's
yeah.
get into the next one because we somehow managed to talk for 10 minutes on that question as well.
It's okay.
These
It's
Q&As
fine.
always get so chatty. We have like 7 questions here, and we're like, we're never going to get through all of these.
Mm.
But we'll keep doing them until we answer all of your questions. But this one says, I'm in a season of life where I'm ready to work hard AF toward building a better financial future for myself. But I also crave the balance of being able to do what I want. I'm not super creative, so I'm not sure if content creation is right, but the money people seem to make on social media is crazy. I just don't know where to go. Do I try social media, freelancing, something else? I want out of the constraints of a 9 to 5 and to do something on my own.
Okay. I have several thoughts here. My first thought is you're in a season of life where you're ready to work hard AF, but you also crave balance of being able to do what you want. And I don't think that those go together. I think you have to pick one for this season of life. And I say this because I think it sounds like you want to go into something more entrepreneurial. You want to do something on your own. And I think a lot of like content you'll see on social media about freelancing or content creation or whatever makes it look like they're in these seasons of balance or entrepreneurship in general of, living these balanced lives. But living those balanced lives typically comes after, to be honest, like at least 1 to 2 years of very hard work. And there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that you don't even like think about, like even having for example, those which a lot of people don't know this, but I remember when I first heard it and I was like, are you freaking for real? The people who like travel full time and they like bring their laptop everywhere and they market it as, this is not everyone who does this obviously, but they market it as like, oh, I have all the balance in the world, and they post a picture of their computer out by the pool. They go out to the pool, they take a photo of the laptop out by the pool, and then they go back inside the hotel and they work inside because your laptop literally overheats outside. They don't sit on the beach. They're doing a little photo shoot in their beach chair with their laptop and they go back inside. Like, it's to paint this idea of balance and flexibility and freedom that like isn't necessarily the case. But I think that these two things cannot happen in the same season. I think there are ways to go about building a business in which you're not burning yourself into the ground. I personally was working like 70 hours a week for months on end when I started. You don't have to do that. You can work 40 hours a week at your regular job and 10 hours a week on your business, but just know the time horizon for building that business into something full time is going to be much longer than if you're dedicating 40 hours a week to your business and 30 hours a week, or 40 hours a week to your job and 30 hours a week to your business. When it comes to the side of I'm not super creative, so I'm not sure if content creation is right, but the money people seem to make on social media is crazy. Yes and no. With the money on social media, yes, social media has a very high income potential, but it has to be something that you enjoy. So if you don't actually enjoy doing social media, I think that would impact your income potential on that, in that career, because you're not going to
Yeah,
want
if
to
you have
show
no
up for
desire
it.
to do
If
it,
you have
don't
no
do it.
desire, don't do it. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But also freelancing, I think same thing. Starting a freelance business, you have to enjoy it, and it shouldn't be just for the money. It should be because like you want to do what that work is or you want to enjoy it. So my tactical advice here on this is, I called this like reverse engineering my career. I feel like we did an episode on it or something about it, and I've probably done a post on it or something on my page. It's not like the most novel concept, but I it's how I figured out my career. And I just got lucky. The first one I chose was like what I end up loving doing. But I initially in college, wanted to be a human rights lawyer. So I studied human rights and urban studies and social justice organizing. And I took the law school admissions test, or the LSAT, and was like getting ready to apply to law school. And then I had a conversation with like an attorney, because I had an internship with the judicial branch of Connecticut. So I asked an attorney, hey, can we like do a coffee chat? And I was asking him about the day to day of being a lawyer, and it was like my nightmare having to just like read documents all day long and sit in a cubicle in my freaking dress pants and my heels. And like, I had no time in the courtroom really to advocate for people. Like, and then you're going home and you're working 70 hours a week and you're emotionally exhausted and physically exhausted. I was like, great, that sounds amazing. No, I don't want to do that. So I said, okay, well, clearly going in the order of what are my interests, what career can I do with that interest is not working. Maybe if I do it backwards, if I go reverse, I can like find a career that I enjoy. And so I said, okay, what kind of life do I want to live? What does that look like? What kinds of jobs can afford me that lifestyle? Because your job that's the money that you have to live the life that you want to live. So I was like, okay, what jobs could afford me that lifestyle? And of those jobs, I'm going to pick one and I'm going to start there. And I knew I wanted freedom, flexibility, and a very high income potential. So I said, okay, entrepreneurship could do that. What kinds of entrepreneurship? Maybe I could do freelance marketing. And I just picked it. I looked at the list of stuff and I said, okay, I'm just going to pick freelance marketing and I'll start there. And I committed to it for a year. And I said, if I absolutely despise it or it doesn't work, I'll pivot to something else. But at some point, you've got to narrow down the list. But it should be things that you want to do, so that then I ended up with a career I enjoy and a career that affords me the life I want to live.
Yeah, the comment about like social media income can be crazy. I feel like we need to dissect this a little bit because I mean, freelancing and like social media are two very, very broad terms. Like freelancing can mean a ton of different roles. You could be a freelance project manager, a freelance marketer, a freelance engineer, a freelance coder. Like it's just a job structure. There's a lot of different roles within it. So that's a very broad term. But then also social media is a extremely broad term. There are a million different things that you can do within the realm of social media. For example, there are people who freelance to be like influencer marketing managers. So they're doing more of like the campaign management side. You can decide you want to be an influencer and you want to show up every day and talk about your life and get people to follow you because they know everything about your life, and then you get brand deals. Or you can be in the boat of like, hey, I have this interest. I feel like I can help people in doing X, Y, and Z things. I'm going to use social media to gain an audience in that topic to promote my business within that topic. And I feel like those are the kind of distinctions. Like if you want to start posting on social media, you're either doing it as an influencer or you're doing it as a business owner. And that's one thing that you kind of have to decide. You don't have to decide going into it, but that's something that you probably should really like reflect on, because a lot of people don't want to be influencers, and that's fine. There are a lot of other use cases for social media in the business owner realm, but you kind of have to know that going into it so that you aren't just like showing up and posting aimlessly for something that like you don't even want, because a lot of people don't want to be influencers.
100%. I think it's definitely a layered question. Okay. Next question. What would be your advice for a female entrepreneur going through her first quote unquote low income season since she started less than a year ago?
Okay, I feel like I don't have like anything like crazy to say about this. The biggest thing is remembering that it's normal to have a low income season and recognizing whether it's just a low income season or if it's like a trend downward in your revenue. So Grace and I talk all the time about how obviously we're business owners, our business revenue is very volatile. Sometimes we'll have a low income month, but like not freaking out about that unless it gets to a point where, okay, for the last 6 months, my income started at 10,000 and then it dropped to 9,000 and then it dropped to 8,000. And all of a sudden here we are 6 months later and now I'm at $4,000 a month. That's a trend downward for a long period of time. But if I just have one random $4,000 month when I'm used to having $10,000 or $11,000 months, like that's not something that you should necessarily worry about. So just kind of like recognizing those trends. And then if it's a trend, going into, okay, what is my business model and does my business model need a change? So is there like, let's look at all of my income streams. Which one of my income streams am I relying on the most right now? Do I need to pick up some slack in like another area? Or is it just like, yeah, a business model problem, and do I need to focus on something else?
I'd say too, so I'm assuming this person is asking this question because there's some sort of worry around it. And also in the question, they said like less than 1 year ago is when you started. If you haven't been in it for a full year, you really don't have any information on what the seasonality of revenue will look like for your business. I know when I started doing content creation, content creators would find that January, like Q1, was really low. I always found Q1 to be stronger in my business, but then in I was in a different niche than other people, right? So like when I was in the finance niche, I found that it was really good. That makes a lot of sense, right? It's the new year. People want to get their money together, so I'm going to make more money there. And Q4 is also a time when a lot of content creators make more because it's the holidays, people are buying things left and right, brands are using up their marketing budget. However, in the first year of business, I was like, woo, like these are cool quarters, but then the quarters in between, I was like, hold on a second. And now I know that seasonality is there. So I know, okay, in Q4, if I have a really high quarter, I'm going to reserve more so that when I get to Q2 of the following year or Q1 or whenever those low income seasons are, I'm good. But if you've been in business for less than a year, you just don't have as much data on the seasonality. So cut yourself some slack and don't panic, because it could just be that that's what things look like, going forward, and it's nothing to do with your business. It's just what the space looks like. However, I also, one of my friends, my friend Kate, I remember I was going through like a lower income season at a very a time in my life when I was also going through a ton of personal things, and so I didn't have capacity to like take on more clients or whatever. I remember talking to her about it, and again, this was like this person said, quote unquote, low income season. I was like, I am very much okay, but I was like, hold on a second, and started to panic. And my friend Kate was like, this is literally solvable. Like, she was like, why are we panicking? She was like, it's completely solvable. She's like, you either have a revenue problem or you have an expenses problem, both of which you can fix. And she was so real with me, and I was just like, you're actually so right. And I didn't have a colossal problem. It was pure panic that was just kind of like coming out. And so I think once you realize that, okay, let me look at this. Like, let me look at my expenses. Like, am I spending more than I should? Are there places where I could reasonably cut back? Are there any subscriptions that I really don't use? Or am I paying someone to do work for me that's not actually saving me any time or money, right? Or how am I spending my time? And then also look at your revenue. Like you were just saying, Erin, like what income streams are bringing in the most? What's working, what's not? And get smart about that. Or okay, my conversion rate on this thing doesn't look too hot. What can I do to try to improve that? Or how can I get more views to this? Like, really look at those things, and know that also low income seasons in general are just very normal. And then the last thing I'll say on this is, if you're asking this, what I always had to remind myself was like, if you're asking this type of question, right, you're seeking advice, it's very clear to me that you're thinking about your business and you're thinking about it strategically. So I feel like I can reasonably assume that you're not dumb, right? You're not a dumb person. You're very like proactive about what you're doing. So my assumption here is that you're paying attention to your numbers. And so you're not going to be like, income's down. And then month 2, you're like, so down again. Month 3, you're like, oop, down again. And without changing a single thing, you're paying attention to it. The whole like monitoring it, like I assume you're already on it. And that's really all that you can be doing, and then making changes based on that. So don't panic, ride it out, and just keep monitoring it and be strategic like you already are.
Yeah, in that first year of business, I think like don't get down on yourself too much, but also recognize that it's such a good time to really learn the ins and outs of the finances of your business. Because I heard this in a podcast one time, and this girl was like a business manifestation girl, and she was talking about how like the universe is not going to give you something that you're not prepared for. So if you're making, let's say, 50K in your business right now, and you're like struggling to understand the finances and the financial breakdowns between revenue, expenses, saving for taxes, the universe isn't going to let your business scale to $1 million a year, because how are you going to handle $1 million a year if you can't handle $50,000 a year? And I'm obviously not saying that this person can't handle their business balance sheet, because that's not what this question was at all. But I just think that first year is so important to really look at like, okay, now's a good time to set up systems for every single month. I'm going to do my bookkeeping and look at how much I made and how much I spent and how much do I need to set aside for taxes. And let's build my business emergency fund so that when I do have a low income season, I don't have to freak out about it because I have money to pull from so that I can still cover all of my business expenses and things like that. So you learn so much in that first year and it really sets you up for success moving forward. But let's get into the next question. This one says, balancing wanting and trying to be off of social media because life just feels more full, joyful, and I'm more content without seeing what others are doing versus having to be on it to advertise my small business on that business account. So difficult to find the balance of posting when I feel like I don't know trends or what would be relevant, but trying to stay off because it's healthier for me.
My advice here is to set parameters for yourself on what your social media consumption will look like. And I say this as someone who's actively trying to do that as we speak. I started a new rule as of yesterday, no social media after 8 p.m. So when I come home from like hanging out with my friends or going to pickleball or whatever at 10 o'clock, I will not be doing my nightly scroll like I used to before going to bed. There will be no more of that because I found that same thing, like my life just feels more full and joyful when I'm not scrolling endlessly and I'm already on my phone during the day for work purposes. So I think you have to find a balance. Like you obviously will have to go on social media to make your posts for your business and to know what is relevant and what is trending, but that doesn't mean you have to excessively scroll. So again, my parameter is no social media after 8 p.m. I have time limits on my apps. So my social media apps, I'm only quote unquote allowed to spend 2 hours total on all of my social media apps per day. So between any social media app I have on my phone, 2 hours total. And then those apps will lock after 2 hours. And there's an option to hit like ignore time limit or ignore for 15 minutes. And that just adds more friction into the process. So if I find myself, like if I've already hit 2 hours and I go to open that app and it's not for something business related, it's for a personal scroll, it kind of just makes me like think twice, like, ooh, I already spent 2 hours on these apps. And that's a lot of time to spend on an app, like, which is kind of on social media. That's crazy. Like that's a lot of time. So I'm like, okay, do I want to do that? Like, what's the intention behind me scrolling right now? Is it because I want some entertainment? Okay, cool, fine. Then I can hit ignore time limit. Is it because I'm, you know, feeling low and I'm looking for something to fill an emotional, like, oh, I'm feeling sad, so I'm gonna go just mindlessly scroll and whatever. Like, what's the purpose behind it? There is an app too, if you're just the type of person who's just gonna hit ignore time limit like a million times over. There is an app called Opal that I know a friend of mine has used that will like really lock your apps, like lock them for real. And I do believe you have to pay for it, but I mean, we've all put money towards crazier things in life. And the other thing I'll say is when you talk about you're more content without seeing what others are doing, but you still have to be on it, mute people. Mute people, girl. I have some people that I like know that I have muted because there were points in time where I was like, it's just not like if there's anyone that I ever found myself comparing myself to, or if their content didn't make me feel good for whatever reason, I just mute them. And I'm sure people that I know have me muted too. Like it's just, I don't think it has to mean anything bad, but sometimes it's like I'm just more content without seeing that or knowing what everyone and everyone thing is doing. So you can still follow them and you can still support their stuff if you would like, but maybe mute their posts or their stories or whatever, so that when you're logging onto your business account, you're not falling into the trap of doom scrolling on content that you know is not going to fill your cup.
Yeah, I feel like there's two problems that I notice myself doing. The one is mindlessly opening the apps for no reason because it's just like a habit at this point. Every single time I pick up my phone, I open up Instagram, like without fail. And it's not even to mindlessly scroll. It's usually as a creator, it's to go on my own profile and look at the post that I just posted and see how it's performing, which is such a bad mind game to get into.
It's like,
I
girl,
just posted it an hour ago. Like, yes, it has 100 likes and that's fine. Just leave it alone. But I do that. I probably open my Instagram account like 150 times a day. It's actually
I think you can
insane.
see the number on your stats, which is I don't even want to know.
Oh my gosh, I don't even want to know. But in that case, like add a little bit more friction, even just like putting your Instagram app into like a little folder on another page on your home screen so it's not front and center. Do something like that. But then the second problem is the like scrolling inspiration, but it ending up being more detrimental than it is helpful. Because I think as creators, we naturally think that we need to do that. Like, let me go scroll on TikTok because that's going to give me content ideas. And 9 times out of 10, it's doing more harm than good. But there is a level of it in which I think it's helpful. So learning that balance is important. And I think to find that balance, something that really helps me is containing it to a short period of time and being intentional about the time that you're scrolling for inspiration. So literally time block on your calendar, like 30 minutes for inspiration scrolling. Don't do it sitting on your couch, do it in front of your computer and get your phone out. And let's say you're on Instagram, like scroll through Instagram reels, save things. As you're saving things, put it into your little like Notion or whatever system you have to capture ideas, and be intentional about like why you're saving certain things. So let's say you saved someone's day in the life video. Why did you save it? Did you like her hook? Did you like the visual that she used for the first like opening screen? Did you like the story that she told? Like, be intentional with why you're doing what you're doing so that you're not just mindlessly scrolling on the couch and thinking that it's productive, because it's not.
100%. Also, so real. Opening the app like 5 minutes after you post the video and being like, how's it doing? It's like, guess what? Opening the app and refreshing is not going to actually change the performance of the video. Like it's already there. I do the same thing. And I was just trying to see if I could find it on my phone so I could share how to get to that section of your iPhone, but I don't remember. There is a section where I remember because I got a notification once about it. And I was like, I'm immediately turning this off. That was disrespectful. It told me how many times I picked up my phone, like how many times I like turn, like, you know, when you like, when your phone is like the screen's black and you turn it and like up and it lights up. Yeah. It told me how many times I picked it up. And my goodness, it was like so bad. I don't even know what notification it was. Like, I've tried to find it in the notification center, but I turned it off. I need to put that data back on my screen because I think it would humble me severely and I would be a lot better about using my phone. But I remember I sat there and I was like, I pick up my phone that many times. This little device, you know, our parents used to always be like, it's those damn phones. It is these damn phones. And I'm like, so I've tried to leave my phone behind too. This is like not what the person asked, but I try to leave my phone behind when I'm doing certain things. Like if I'm sitting on the couch watching TV, I put my phone on the other side of the room so that I don't open it and start to scroll on social media. Or this is going to sound crazy, but I know so many people are going to laugh. Stop taking your phone to the bathroom with you. Why? Why do we do that? Why do we go from the living room to the bathroom and we take our phone to the bathroom, pee in silence? You know what I mean? Like, why are we doing that? Or like when I go from my living room, I go into my kitchen to wash the dishes. Why do I take my phone with me over into the kitchen? What is so pressing that I can't wash the dishes for 15 minutes without my phone 2 feet away from me? It's crazy. And it's just like, it is these damn phones. It's these damn phones. It is. Okay. Last question on our list today. I started content creation about 3 months ago. I picked a platform and a niche. I have 400 followers. My reels usually get more views than my on-screen posts. Assuming this person means like a static post, like a picture.
I think so. Yeah.
I post 1 time per day. I'm looking for advice on whether I should invest money into a coach to grow this platform, change platforms, or hold steady and give it time. I'm hoping to have a digital product in the future and make this an income to boost my savings. Thank you.
Okay, I really like this question. Because I feel like a lot of people find themselves in this situation where they started posting, they have been doing it consistently, but they're not seeing the results, so they're getting a little bit frustrated. And I liked like the individual questions that this person asked. So let's kind of like dissect them a little bit. So the first thing that they asked is whether or not they should switch platforms. And this is just my humble opinion, but I think Instagram is like one of the best platforms to be on right now. Like my biggest following is on TikTok, but I make more money from Instagram. Instagram it's been around longer. It's probably not going anywhere. It has more features to be able to like connect with your audience and really build that community. It also does a better job of pushing out your posts to your actual followers as opposed to just like posting them into the abyss of the For You page on TikTok. So I think it's a good platform to be on. And I also think it's the one that you got started at. So it's not the best use of your time to dedicate 3 months to something. And then if you're not seeing the results, switch. So I would just stay the course with Instagram. The second thing that you asked was investing money into a coach to grow the platform. I don't think that when you're at that level, it's worth your time or money to invest in a coach. I think I've spent well over $10,000 on content coaching over the past couple of years, but it all came well after I started making money. I didn't invest any money that I didn't make from the platform. I kind of like invested it back into my business. One thing that is kind of like a good little exercise that you can do when you're at this size is, again, like we just had the conversation on, be really intentional about scrolling for inspiration and like really dissecting what's working and what's not working. So I worked with a content coach about a month ago, and one of the exercises that he had everyone in the cohort do was called a 7x7. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to pick 7 creators. They don't have to be in your exact niche, but they should be in kind of like adjacent niches. So maybe you're a running creator and you want to pick someone who is in the health and wellness industry, maybe in like with healthy recipes, or they do like day in the life or lifting or whatever it may be. So kind of like adjacent things, and go onto their profiles and look for their 7 like highest performing pieces of content, or just like 7 good performing pieces of content. And then you're going to literally get a spreadsheet and you're going to write the creator, their 7 pieces of content, and dissect every single thing about that video. Because what you're going to start to notice is like, okay, this video performed well because they had a strong hook, because they told a good story, because the visual of the first screen was really strong. So I think that's a really good way to just kind of like take some time to really study content creation, because it is a skill that you have to develop. And then just focus on every single time you post a piece of content. You're not just posting for the sake of consistency. You're posting to get 1% better. Like you're practicing the skill of content creation every single time you post.
I 100% agree. I would not switch platforms. I would keep focusing on one. I would get good at one before you expand to another. Like start, because you're so early into this, right? Like 3 months ago, and you are posting every day. It's 90 days, and you're posting some static posts. You're starting to learn that your reels usually get more views than your static posts. Okay, double down on reels, right? Like you're still learning. 3 months into it is very, very early. And I think pivoting to another platform, like it's better to just stay where you are and learn. I also would not hire a coach. I personally just like the way that I am. I'm not going to invest money into something if it's not like earning me something. Like with my business, like I will invest if I think it's going to get me a significant ROI. But if I am not generating, like I didn't do that until I was making a lot in my business, like or enough to feel like it was worth like investing. And I think it's personally just too early to invest real money into a coach. I do think that similar to what you were saying about the 7x7, I think even just doing that on your own posts, like look at your own stuff, like what are the things that got the most views, and get into the analytics, look at the watch time, like what at the 5 second mark, what percentage of people are still watching that content. Typically, if it's like, I believe it's like 50% or more of the viewers are still watching at the 5 second mark, that's a really strong indicator that you had a good hook and that your video is going to perform well. So like looking at those things, looking at the views on them, and then just being very real with yourself. Like there are videos that I'll post that don't really perform well, and I have to look at them and be like, yeah, because I didn't have a strong hook, or the first shot was not compelling, or the sound was off, or the edit was off, and like then actually try to change it and make the content better. And I think a lot of times, and obviously I have no idea what this person's content looks like or the niche or like anything like that, but when you're starting out, I think that's one of the most important things and most transformative things you can do is looking at what you've put out and being real with yourself about what's not working. If you have a video, like some of the videos I used to post in the beginning, they got 200 views because they were bad. They were bad videos. They sucked. I look like I'm being held hostage, like in some of these videos. I look scared, like I had no on-camera presence. And I just had to be real with myself about that. Like, this was just a bad video. Get back in the lab and figure out how to solve it, like make it better. And that just takes time. It just takes reps and showing up. So I would keep doing what you're doing, but look at both what you're doing with a fine tooth comb and what other people are doing. And the last thing I'll say on this is I don't think hiring a coach at this stage is a good move, to be honest, but that's not to say you can't connect with other people that have followings of similar sizes to you. Like if you find someone who's doing something similar to you, maybe you guys get on a call and you like ask each other for advice in your content, or you ask a trusted friend for advice. I think a lot of people might just like blow smoke up your butt and be like, it's lovely, and like not give you any constructive feedback. But also, too, I believe you can upload videos into certain AI platforms and ask it for feedback. Like, this video, I post this video and it only got this many views, or I've posted all of this stuff and I'm at this point. Like, what could have improved this video? Sometimes I'll do that with my scripts. I'll say, what could have improved this script or made this stronger? Because it didn't get good views. I feel like my hook was off. And it will just give me ideas that I can try for the future. And that's an option too, because I think that that will help with growing your platform as well.
Yeah, and the last thing that I'll say on this is, even though we don't necessarily think it's the right time to invest in a coach for content, it's a really good idea to start following content coaches on social media, because they post a lot of really amazing tips too that I've worked with in the past, that I still watch all of their YouTube videos and all of their podcasts just as like little refreshers. Are the first one is Tess Barclay. I think on YouTube you can find her as like Tess Barclay, or Busy Blooming is like her business name, but she posts all of her like YouTube videos. She also uploads them to Spotify, and she actually just launched a membership community for content creators where you can like upload your content to get feedback, and she does a lot of like branding stuff in there and has like live Q&A calls, and it's like $25 a month. Like, I'm in it because I think that that's enough value for $25 a month. So I really like her. And then I also worked with Alyssa from Inspired Media Co. That's her like at name on socials. She also has a podcast called Just Inspired Media, I believe. So those are two really great resources to kind of like just get ideas, because honestly, when you're starting anything new, it's kind of like a you don't know what you don't know type of thing. So just stick with it, just focus on consistency, getting 1% better every time, and naturally you're going to get a lot better. But a lot of people give up before they let it work. Great questions. This one was so fun, this little Q&A. We could definitely do more of these, because I feel like you guys have a lot of questions on like content creation, career, entrepreneurship, and that's one of our favorite topics to talk about. So if you have any other questions for us, definitely leave them in Spotify and we can compile them into another Q&A type of episode. But you can also DM us on Instagram at The Life You Love Pod. We love hearing from you guys. But thanks for tuning into the podcast, and until next week.